We are live. It's Chris and Brian here from Resolve Technology. And today we want to talk about what's been in the news that's gone a little crazy. The outages that we experienced. I think it started Thursday into Friday of last week. And I don't think it'd be right for us to not do a video on this, even though we don't use the CrowdStrike products for security for our clients. There are many government and big businesses that use it, along with some smaller businesses. Good company, nothing wrong with it. Same with Microsoft. I think people were confused because all these different services were down, but there were two separate things going on, at least two separate things. Microsoft and the Microsoft Azure cloud, they had some issues there, and that might have been for a few days. And then CrowdStrike was basically happened when they pushed out a code change to the endpoints. And some of those endpoints were workstations, and some of those endpoints were servers. And I think that's where some of the confusion was, because some of those servers live in the cloud and like Microsoft Azure and things like that. So, Chris, what do you got on this big outage?
This was just in a IT group I'm a member of. This is all I saw, a bunch of images like this. So it's okay, something's going on.
Yeah.
A few things. So I guess they came out today at least. Yeah, it looks like it's sometime today. This worst IT outage, they're blaming the EU. Defective update from CrowdStrike's Falcon system, which, as Brian mentioned, is designed to prevent certain cybersecurity attacks, and it has administrative or elevated access to the system.
Okay, so yeah, let's stop there because that's what this EU thing is all about. I think Microsoft is using this as an opportunity to push back on the European Union, saying they're a monopoly and basically having them do all these things, opening up their systems and things like that. Because the EU said, why doesn't Apple have these problems? And Microsoft's basically coming back and saying, that's because you want us to be more open. And we're anti-competitive. And so I think that's what this is all about here, the Microsoft stuff.
Yeah, they're mentioning the Digital Market Act, where, right now they're trying to force Apple to have access to iPhones to allow alternative app stores and web browsers to be used. I understand the web browsers, but when you get into app stores and side-loading apps like you can on Android, you're opening a whole can of worms. So I get both ends. I see the open source, hey, why can't we do this? But I also understand from like a security perspective of what Microsoft and Apple may want to protect.
So let's go back a little bit, unravel this. The EU thing. So basically, Microsoft is saying, we let companies like CrowdStrike have access to our operating system kernel, basically like the brains of, Windows 11, Windows 10. We allow them to hook into it easier than companies like Apple does. And look, see, this is what happens, right? So this is part of the problem. Like, we've opened it up for this because what happened is CrowdStrike was writing somehow to the kernel, and that's what caused these blue screens. And when you get a blue screen, as we know, some people were able to get back online within a certain amount of reboots or whatever, because basically CrowdStrike pushed out a patch. I don't know what the timeline was, but yeah, Chris is showing on the screen. That's what they were looking at. And that was because CrowdStrike had bad code. Okay. They miscoded something. They made a mistake. They pushed it out without fully testing it. And then all these companies all over the world had these issues. So it started in like Australia and overseas, over in Asia. So that's why we knew about it. Like, it started getting reported overnight and into the morning in the news. And we didn't see that because we don't have clients on CrowdStrike. However, there was spillover because we had a couple clients that had software as a service. The platforms that run their business were in the cloud, and those bigger software vendors must have been running CrowdStrike, or they got caught up in this Microsoft outage, which was a separate thing, right? The Microsoft outage was separate from what I gather. So this is very complicated, but like I told you, Chris, like my brother, his wife went in for surgery the other day, and everybody in the waiting room, they had to cancel all the starting at 5 in the morning. They had to cancel all the surgeries. So this was widespread across hospitals, government, big business.
Planes were grounded. Yeah,
Oh,
there was some.
airlines, yeah, that was a big one because yeah, planes were grounded and people had to. So now the airline is going to have to refund a
Yeah.
bunch of tickets, and I wonder how that's going to work out in terms of insurance because obviously they have business interruption insurance and cyber insurance, but I don't think
Yeah.
they'll cover this on the cyber insurance. But I could be wrong. Maybe they do. But this is why a lot of companies don't want to do cyber insurance because is this a cyber insurance issue or not? Like,
It clearly affects business operations. I just wanted to mention what happened here could happen with any software. Doesn't even have to be some kind of security stack. It could be an application. It could be a graphics driver for your CAD machine. You push it, or a Windows patch. Even with Microsoft, they've gotten much better over the years, but their monthly updates every second Tuesday of the month blue screened a bunch of servers, and then operations just crumble. So you got to stay on top of these things. And while patching is important, like this incident, for example, I don't know, a development or testing environment, that we use that personally, even for a much smaller scale than what some of these bigger companies are doing, like these billion-dollar businesses with millions of clients. Like, it's always good to test things first.
yeah, that's a good point, Chris. Because so for people that don't know, I don't know if we said it, but CrowdStrike is a security product that sits on workstations and servers and things like that to protect, adds a layer of protection. But with that comes these extra drivers and things that Chris is talking about. And this could happen to Microsoft. This could happen to other vendors we work with. Like Chris said, it can happen to anybody. This has got people thinking about what's your plan, your incident response plan if something like this happens? Or do you also, there was a lot of talk about why did people just randomly push out CrowdStrike, let it get pushed out automatically without doing, say you have 100 computers, maybe you do 5 or 10 at a time, and then the next, everything's working fine, no problems reported, then you do your next batch. We try to do that at a small level.
Go cowboy on road, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not good to go rogue. We talk
No, I
about
know.
that. And I think too many people did go rogue and just assume CrowdStrike, it's a big company, everybody uses it. What could go wrong, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
I feel like
I've seen you could have a personal computer at home, and like you mentioned with the drivers, say you got, I don't know, RGB fans in your case, or you got some kind of water cooling solution to cool your processor. And the software, right? You got to plug it into a USB hub, that's some kind of smart hub to control it. That installs, I don't know, a handful of drivers. The motherboard manufacturer, they might have certain components that have a specialized driver. When you get into drivers, things can very easily go, like, I'm not surprised with that's also why some of these products are so hard to uninstall. When you do like an onboarding of a new client, and they got, what's the one we run into a lot? Not WebRoot. Is it WebRoot? Yeah.
WebRoot, yeah, random.
It's really baked in there, and you got to really rip off it's not as easy as ripping off a Band-Aid.
A lot of things to consider here. We won't even go into the Microsoft data outage side. I don't think we have time for that. I just want to add here because I was curious. I just looked up the CrowdStrike stock price. So in the last 5 days, today it's $265. In the last 5 days, it's gone from $378 to $265. So
I saw 10% for its competitors this morning, is what I'm seeing. It's also worth noting, though, the one thing I'll mention on that Azure outage is people will say, oh, let's not avoid the cloud then, right? Let's self-host it. What if we still, because there's a lot of self-host, you have your own on-premise server, you got infrastructure, why not continue using that? Then there's maintenance costs, there's IT staff. If there's a storm, there's an outage. There's a lot of convenience to the cloud that many people don't realize. And a lot of people aren't aware of how much we rely on technology. You do with banks and using credit cards. There's certain technologies involved, but even going to a McDonald's drive-through. I've seen jokes on IT, certain IT Reddit pages and stuff. Oh, look, there's a blue screen on the McDonald's on the menu. Like,
or an
it
ATM.
really, Or an
An
ATM.
ATM, I've seen
Yeah.
it before on an ATM. They're notorious for having old technology, like ancient. It's
Oh yeah,
just,
you'll see like a Windows XP box, and
yeah,
it might look like a computer to you. This little incident here, like that's how delicate all this can be at times. So you gotta
right.
be on top of things.
And there is no, because I get into these conversations all the time. Like I'll talk to a financial person and they're like, Brian, why don't we just put it all in the cloud? Or Brian, why are we going to the cloud? Why don't we avoid the cloud? For us, it's not one or the other. It's a case by case basis. You have
Yeah.
to look at the money, you have to look at the impact, like here in this case, how long does it take you to get back up and running? What do your software vendors want to do? They're mostly, most of them nowadays are in the cloud. So in some cases, we have no control over that, right? Like every case, it's a case by case basis. So I hear people all, like you mentioned, Reddit groups. I saw over the weekend, oh, this is why the cloud isn't the savior. I agree. In some cases, it's not, but like it's a case by case basis. One is not necessarily better than the other. Just that's why you hire companies like ours so we can explain what the impact is, not only financially, but keeping your business running and things like that, which is, I guess it all comes down to financial, but in security and things like that.
Just say one last thing is the
Yeah.
simplest way to explain the cloud to somebody is it's just somebody else's computer. That's it. You're going to your browser and you're accessing it, but it's really physical hardware in a data center, in someone's basement, wherever it may be. I have a T-shirt that says the cloud is just someone else's computer.
Right.
So that's really the simplest. It's oversimplified, but
And
that's pretty much what it is.
and you should have worn it for this call. We'll have to wear it on the
I
next
don't know
one.
where it is. It's somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to you have to wear that one. All right, Chris, we'll go on that.
All righty.
Take it easy.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye.